I've been on the road, I've been doing shows. Now we eating steak, remember sleeping on the floor. We stillin' at the gas station when the time was cold. In the kitchen, hot still trying to flip it out the stove. Rockin' fake J's, praying that nobody know. Watch them take my dog away, it was way too hard to stay composed. Fight to see the light of day, all this blood on my clothes. I was tired every day, green light, it's time to go. I don't wanna live life fast or die too young. Die too young. 100 miles per hour, I might crash, cause the good die young. Yeah, the good die young. Push it to the limit, I can't go no more. Red light, no way, I'm coming back home. Long dirt road, all on my own. I'ma be the greatest, write my name in the stone. Write my name in the stone. Yeah, I'm coming back home. Yeah, I'm coming back home. Write my name in the stone. Cause I'm coming back home. Cause I'm coming back home. Right back where I left because I know my people needed me. Diamond in the rough, I don't know what it is they see in me. Go down as a legend in my city cause we beat the streets. Trying to spread the wealth around the block, no I can't keep from me. Told me I should leave, I see the bigger picture and it's way bigger than me. Can't be living like a king, but my people need to eat. If I got it, then you got it, we gon' get back on our feet. And I put it on me. I don't wanna live life fast or die too young. Or die too young. 100 miles per hour might crash cause good die young. Yeah, but here I come. Push it to the limit, I can't go no more. Red light, no way, I'm coming back home. Long dirt road.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jerry O'Connor. This is Tech for Creators. That's Jake over there. Welcome to another live stream on my channel. We haven't been doing it for a minute, so I talked Jake into helping me out this week to go over kind of the tech news or the news for the week for hardware, software platforms as it relates to small-time creators. So either solo or small teams, people who are doing social media or doing creating content for themselves. And it's really more about a place for independent creatives to learn and connect. And creating is better than consuming. And the normal disclaimer I make on all these shows is that we are going to talk about a lot of hardware and tools and gadgets, but it's really more about producing content to build community or to really kind of say something positive in the world. So these are just tools that you can use, and they're just fun to talk about, but it's not something that we're trying to promote like consumerism or whatever. So Jake, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. Happy to be on here once again. Always
Thank you
happy
for
to be on
doing
this channel.
Yeah, really appreciate you always being available, always coming in and preparing. You're always more prepared than I am. Always asking for the stories ahead of time, so it's fun.
Anytime.
Yeah. So I guess we could just kind of jump right in. We've got 3 basic stories this week. They're usually, this week it's a little bit more camera and production hardware kind of focused. But I saw this pop up. I guess it's the GoPro Volta, and it's really just this handle thing in this picture here. This is from a digital camera. It's just this handle thing that they released, which is a kind of a tripod and battery. I saw it on Peter McKinnon's channel this week. So I guess it's just a new accessory to make the GoPro more of a vlogging piece of equipment. Is that what you think, Jake?
Seems like it, yeah. And especially with this, with selling with this, they're doing a creator kit as well. So along with the stand, you'll get a microphone and you'll get, I think, some lighting equipment, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah, the small little light. Yeah, Peter McKinnon had that too. And then they also have like a sling bag. It's a pretty cheap little plasticky bag, but he was trying to, I think he gets the stuff, they send it to him, and so he has to review it. But he said it was okay. It would be something that would be fun. And he did show it in his video. He set it up on the tripod, and he went into his studio where he has his drums. I think just to show off that he has a drum kit in a nice studio. But he did it intentionally because he said it was low light, and it looked good, and the audio wasn't horrible, didn't really blow out. So I thought it was good. He said that the battery does help it a lot in terms of giving it that extra amount, and it's a quick setup for people who are up blogging as an alternative, I guess, to your your phone. So I don't know. I mean, what are your thoughts on it? Is this something that you would buy or get?
My thoughts are split. Here's the thing. I mean, with the stand alone, just the tripod is, I think, like $130 without a GoPro subscription, which first of all didn't know that was a thing, honestly.
Wow, I
I'm
didn't
not
know that
really in the
either.
GoPro universe,
Huh.
but it's $50 a year for a subscription, but you get, I think, 50% off on everything in the store, which is not bad. Um, but if you were to do the whole creator bundle where you get the camera, you get the microphone, you get the stand, and you get the light, it's $785 without a subscription, which is a weird deal for sure. I mean, it's definitely lower priced than most vlogging setups that you could get. But I think if you're getting started in vlogging and content creation in general, I feel like there's a lot better options in terms of cameras and microphones and all the equipment that you would need to get started just to get more familiar with the equipment. The only use case that I could think that, if you're just getting started in content creation and you would want to consider this would be some sort of extreme sport creator, like some sort of dirt biking or, surfing, whatever it is.
Skier.
Yeah, I know the tripod isn't waterproof like the camera is, but if you have a camera and you go out and you vlog, you do your setup, whatever, and then you can just detach the camera and get right into the extreme sport. It's an all-in-one camera for vlogging and the extreme sport. You're saving probably $1,000 on, two separate setups. I think that's the only real use case that I could see somebody like actually considering this whole kit. But other than that, I would probably look into other, more traditional vlogging setups.
Yeah, I guess I got a couple of thoughts on it. First of all, I don't know I don't know what this. I guess they use digital stabilization, meaning that maybe it's is it shoot in 4K and they crop it so that they can stabilize it with a digital, because it doesn't have a gimbal, obviously. The other thing is that, so I look at this as maybe a competitor to the DJI Osmo. Is that what it's called? The little handheld.
Yeah.
And I don't know the difference. I think that the chip in this camera is similar to that one. That Osmo is a little smaller. It's a couple years older. I've heard great things about this camera itself as an action camera. So maybe they're just trying to compete with DJI and steal some of what would be the Osmo audience for this. Maybe people going out to the beach. Maybe you're on a family. You want something that's a little bit more robust in your phone, or a DSLR or mirrorless camera. You just want something more compact that you can drop and not break or whatever. So it might be good for families or things of that nature. But I do feel that in general, for all cameras, for sure, there's a maturity that seems to be hitting the market in terms of it's harder and harder for them to innovate every year to come out with something that motivates people to have to go upgrade. And the other thing is specifically for GoPro and DJI is their camera equipment tends to be very specialized. So for DJI, it's primarily stabilized and drone, really. And for GoPro, it's obviously action cameras. And then DJI does have an action camera. They do compete with each other a little bit. But again, these cameras, unless you have a very specific purpose where you're out creating content that's action oriented, skateboarders, like you were saying, surfers, snowboarders, these you might have a bunch of these then. But otherwise, I may buy one of these because I have an occasional need to put it on a car or put it on something where I would like to get some B-roll. I don't know that I would ever really use it for primary, editing for the stuff I do. So I'm different, everybody has a different way of doing it. And so I think that when you look at GoPro or DJI, they're very specialized. And so I think it's harder for them to basically innovate or to break out. I think they're kind of in this box of this is what they do it well. But so they have to just kind of slowly innovate. And I appreciate that they do this. I love that they come up with ideas of like, okay, let's put a handle, because maybe this pushes because Canon has a handle like this, I think, for their smaller cameras, and I think Sony has one too for their smaller mirrorless cameras, where you can, I think it might have a microphone, or it gives you extra capability. So that I think I like that they try to do these things. I think if this is kind of a smaller segment. I'm not sure that I would recommend this for someone who is either starting out, or I would just say use your phone. Just take the money, take the $800 or whatever you were going to spend on this, and buy a better phone. Either a better Samsung or a better Pixel or an iPhone, and just get a nice handle for that, because I don't know that this is. I don't know. Those are kind of my thoughts. And so, again, I don't want to bash on the product, because I think it's cool and certainly interesting for the type of work I do, or for what I want to produce. Their products tend to be very, very limited for me. So, and I think that's kind of, honestly, Peter McKinnon didn't say that, but he's a nice enough guy that I think he just reviewed it because he got it and it's good content for him to produce, but, to review it. But clearly I don't think he's going to use this unless he's going to use it the way you and I would use it. He's going to have to go out and come up with a personal project where he has a buddy who's a dirt biker, or he has a buddy who off-roads, and it's like, oh yeah, I got this great camera. It's almost like you find a project for it,
right?
Because you have it, you bought it. It's like, well, I spent this money on this camera.
I made a whole video off a GoPro,
right. And so and then that's the other thing. If you do have friends that you want to create content around, like you have buddies who are off-roaders, or they go camping, or they do stuff that's cool. Yeah, totally. You could start to think about like, hey, I could create, if you're interested in that and you want to be drawn into it and hang out with your friends. Yeah, these are the kind of cameras you definitely should be checking out and trying them out. But, in a way, I think people already know that, you know what I mean? So anyway, it was interesting. I thought it's interesting to see that they come up with kind of new ideas. Anything more to say about that one, or?
No, not really. I'm kind of on the same page as you. Just kind of a very specific use case that I don't personally think I'll ever get into, but for the person that would get into it, I feel like this is a pretty good deal.
Yeah, but I wouldn't recommend it for someone who, like, if they came to me and said, hey, what's a good vlogging camera? I'm not sure I would think of this. You know what I mean? No. I would be like, well, again, it depends on what they know. If they're a snowboarder, I'd be like, oh yeah. But I don't know that they would be coming to me and they would already know the GoPro, because everybody on the mountain is using the GoPro, right?
Right.
So I think they would already know about that. So that was kind of cool. The next one is, this is always kind of a cool thing for me, is that this Aperture announced 2 different lighting systems, or new ones, I guess. Mm-hmm. And Aperture's really come on. I don't know how old they are, but it feels like in the last 5 years, they kind of came out of nowhere and have really competed with like the traditional, traditional lighting companies, and have really, I think they've been putting out some really nice products. So they announced 2, which is, one is this kind of a new tube light, which I might actually see this background behind me. I was actually thinking about getting one of these tube lights because, well, let me say what both of them are. So first, there's this tube light, and then the other one is some LED panels that they've put out that are very similar to what you've been seeing. I know that several lighting companies put these out, but these have come from them. They put it under their Amaran brand. I don't know really what the difference is between why they've started using that name as opposed to Aperture. I think it's supposed to be the lower cost one. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
But I just think they're Apertures. But I think I told you before we started, I saw a review of this one on YC Imaging. I think his name's Chris Rhodes, and he had it. And it's kind of your standard LED panel. I mean, he had it like doubled up, so it was like a big square LED, and he was using it. And he said that they're, he's actually using them for main lights. He does a lot of music videos, and so he's going to use it as a key light. But he also said it's great for if you're in really tight spaces. He was mentioning like a bathroom or a bedroom or somewhere where it's hard to get a full box, a full octabank in. These are great for that. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I mean, for the mats, that's basically they've been so handy every time I've been on a film set and I have needed to fit them in tight spaces, whether it's a car or, like you said, a bathroom. They've been really helpful. Imitating a laptop screen, you just put it on the laptop screen and it's a fully dimmable light. They're really, really useful. I'm not super familiar with the competitors in this space, but I do know Aperture does a really good job, just based on my past experiences with them, mixing, between affordability and also providing a good product, especially with their app interface and the control that you can have on the actual unit. I think overall for the price, for both of these products, for the light mat and for the tubes, I think it's a pretty respectable deal. And especially for the mats, one thing I was thinking about, for creators specifically, not just filmmakers, if you're in a really tight space, like, you're in a small bedroom or something and you can't afford the space to set up a whole light stand with a whole, can light and stuff like that. Mount a few of these to your wall. They're fully, you can change the color and everything. They're literally like a few millimeters thick and you've got a whole lighting setup in a quarter of a bedroom. I think it's an incredible use case.
Yeah, that's actually what I'm using now. This is a cheaper one. It's smaller, but I would love to get something a little bit bigger. The prices of these I think have come down quite a bit, but they're still. Yeah. This isn't like cheap though. I mean, I think the one I looked at, the one that Chris Rose was reviewing, I think it was $900, but I think it included the power source. It may have included a tripod or the light stand. And a box and the A crates. So I mean, but still, I mean, compared to what things were, and these things last forever. They don't really burn out. They're not. You can plug them into a normal wall. I mean, all that stuff that I think 5-10 years ago, you had all sorts of problems with lighting. How hot they were, big, bulky. They took huge amounts of power that you couldn't just plug it into a wall. I mean, you might blow out if you're on location somewhere. So all of this has become so, first of all, affordable, but also just flexible and just, it's amazing. And like you said, you can control them with an app in terms of color temperature. So it's great. I love it. The one thing I'm not as familiar with, and I have never, I've seen them, like some guys have used it I saw some photographers using them, are these light tubes. And they're kind of funky in that I think they're good like lights for like ambient situations, like you can light a corner or, but I have seen people try to use them as like side lights, very kind of dramatic lighting for either photography or for video. What are your thoughts? Do you use them much? I've
used them before. A lot of the places I have seen them used are for ambient stuff, like you said, like putting them in the shot and making it look like a light tube, like not trying to hide the fact that it's a lighting accessory. If you're not trying to do that, and you see that too on YouTube, I think there's some tech channels that do that. I think MKBHD had light tubes in his background at one time. But in a film setting, what I found them really useful for is being mobile with them. So like if, say somebody's walking down a street and you need to light them walking down the street, but you don't want to carry a big, can light, you get this little LED tube and you just flash it in front of them right above the camera. You've got a nice soft and broad wash light that you can just kind of wash their face with, and it's really not like a huge issue to stay portable with it. And especially because it's LED, like you were talking about, the evolution of LED lights, like just makes it that much more practical. So I have seen a good amount of use cases for these, I think. And again, especially for the price, I think it's a really respectable deal.
Yeah, like I said, I might use it for like the background here because you can also you don't have to gel them. You change the color, right? I mean, you can make them pretty blue or whatever. I mean, they're RGB, aren't they? I think so.
Yeah.
You can kind of do a lot with them. So like a background like this at gray, I could make it blue or whatever if I, whatever I want, just to kind of make it a little different. The weird thing is I have as a little bit of a sidetrack, I have HBO Max and I watched, they put on Death of the Nile, which is the latest Kenneth Branagh, the Agatha Christie mystery. And so that came out, I guess, last year or maybe earlier this year. And so now it's finally hit HBO Max. So I was watching it last night, as an old man would. And there's some couple scenes where he directed the movie where he has close-ups, tight close-ups, of faces. And there's some weird lighting. Like the whole movie itself is kind of odd because it takes place obviously in Nile, supposed to be in Egypt, but it all looks very CGI to me. It looks like, when I read the Wikipedia page, they've filmed it all in England, so I'm sure it's all CGI. But there's some weird scenes where they have tight close-ups, and there's like this weird catch light in their eyes that almost looks like a tube light. Like I'm watching it, and I'm like, wow, that's like, it was a weird effect. And, not that I'm some sort of great photographer or videographer or filmmaker, but I'm looking at catch lights and eyes, and I'm like, that's odd. That light. I was trying to figure it out. I'm like, what the heck are they lighting? And it was underneath because it was lower in their eyes. It felt like it was coming up because it was supposed to be like I think it was supposed to be like a nightclub or something where they were at. And so I found it a little distracting, honestly, but just because I became conscious of it. Like I was like trying to figure it out. And so I was like, that's odd. What kind of lighting is that? And you could see this streak across their eye. It's not circular. It wasn't square. It wasn't side. It was underneath and kind of angled. And so I don't know. I just, and seeing that these lights came out, I was thinking about tube lights. I'm like, I wonder if those are Kinos because those are the traditional, a Kino light, right? Would be kind of a traditional fluorescent tube, I guess they used to use. And those are beautiful lights. They kick out, great light. I'm sure these do too.
Amazing.
But it was just interesting to me to like, I wonder if they're using tube lights in that way. I don't know.
Yeah, that was my other use case for them actually. When a few years ago I did a commercial for like a small clothing brand, and it's like a super futuristic like tech wear whatever. So we did the same exact thing where we had two quasar tubes, and we did a really tight close up of the face. And in the eyes, we did a catch light of two quasar tubes in an X formation, and it was so cool. Like it is really jarring because you're used to catch lights being like just random, amorphous shapes. So to see like an X in somebody's eyes, it was the coolest thing in the world. I love that shot so much.
That use case totally makes sense because that's a creative decision to bring you out of your normal reality into like a futuristic reality, right? So I could see that this was like, Death on the Nile is supposed to take in, 1937. So this was supposed to be traditional, classic lighting, soft lighting. And it's in a bar, so it was kind of. It was well lit. It looked fine. It just the catch lights were just kind of odd. The only other time I've seen it was years ago. There's a guy I follow, a photographer I follow, Joey Lawrence, who's brilliant. He's a brilliant photographer. But he was just experimenting, I think, and he came up with, I don't know if they were tube lights. They might have been, but they were thin. They were thin lighting of some sort. I don't know. Maybe it was just LEDs in a tube. And he did a square pattern. So he put the person, and so the light was in a square around them. And the catch light in the eye, he did it intentionally. The catch light in the eye was square. And it was an interesting effect. He showed the photos, and he said, this is what I just think he was creatively just experimenting. And he was like, all right, I'll just see what this does and see what kind of effect does that feel like with people with, square catch lights. Is that jarring? Is it cool? Is it a trend? Whatever. So I don't think that he ever, I didn't notice that he followed up with that and started to do a bunch of portraits that way, but I think it was just something he was experimenting with. But it is interesting that these lights do give you that. You could certainly get certain effects with them. That's for sure.
Yeah.
If you want to be conscious with it. So that was the last kind of like news story we had from, just of news of the week. The only other thing I was going to talk about, and I don't think it's something that we, the slap, it doesn't really fit this channel in terms of tech for creators that Will Smith slapped Chris Rock at the Academy Awards. But I did want to, I think the one thing I wanted to say about it, and I've been trying to noodle around with like writing something about the death of movies and the death of movie stars, and it's kind of a dramatic clickbaity title. But I do feel like I did want to comment that I think that like I'm a casual fan of the movies, and I watched it this week and saw that, and obviously I think I had the same reaction a lot of people did. It's kind of, it was kind of ugly, and it, kind of unfortunate for everybody. But it also made me realize like the Oscars and movie stars, they, I'm older now, and so I used to watch the Oscars and feel like, wow, this was fun, and these are people you don't get to see very often, and I just feel like a lot of that's kind of gone away now, and what you're watching are, there's just like this compression of media, so that movies they're not like off in this bifurcated area where, oh, we just go to another building and we watch movies and that's the only time you ever see people. It's like, no, you see them all over now. And so, and I think like the Academy Awards, they're struggling because I think traditionally they were like this big honcho and very prestigious place, and they are kind of being leveled off all amongst everybody else. It's like, okay, your award is as good as the Webbies. You know what I mean? I don't, it doesn't have as much prestige. And I think especially some of the older Academy people, especially the very successful directors and stuff, are struggling, I think, with the idea that movies just don't hold the same place in our culture that they used to. And therefore, this show, for example, is also a big moneymaker for them in terms of it pays for their whole budget. So they've been desperate to try to make the show more entertaining. And so you do get like Chris Rock and you get all these comedians, and nothing against them, but it's not really supposed to be like a celebration of movies and, okay, we're going to do these awards. It's more like, no, we got to make this show entertaining. We got to make as many eyeballs on here with all these famous stars to get advertisements so we can pay for our budget for the year. And I don't fault them for it, but I just feel like it's kind of just this odd thing that movies really, everyone's like, oh, it's not as glamorous, and everyone's kind of bummed out about it. And I'm not really that bummed out about it. I'm just like, well, no, that's just a transition. And in many ways, I watch, stuff that's on YouTube or things like that are almost as well produced and thoughtful. I think I was mentioning to you, I follow this guy, Johnny Harris, on YouTube. He produces like a 20 or 30 minute explainer of something in the world, like the war in Ukraine or whatever. Those are basically documentary shorts. Those would 30 years ago might have qualified for an Oscar. I mean, he does it like every few weeks. He's pumping out one of those. So to me, it's like, part of me is like, wow, they're really just anybody can, if they set their minds to it, they're not going to produce Dune or, one of these great movies, West Side Story, but there is this leveling of media that I don't think it's, at least for somebody like my age, it's come upon me like, oh, wow. So really it's Will Smith is just another YouTuber, you know what I mean? And
yeah,
I don't, and he has to behave the way everybody, I don't know. Anyway, that's kind of it's kind of off. It's a tangential thing. But I do feel like.
No, it's important though. I feel like film is in this like weird limbo between being culturally relevant like it used to be and becoming sort of an old media, like traditional television was, or like radio was. Definitely, like film as a culture and as an art is evolving, but it is weird to see like I guess like there aren't any like big moments in film anymore. The most I can think of that is like a Marvel movie coming out, but like I feel like that's just because it's so accessible, and like you don't need to belong to any sort of like niche community to respect and appreciate and enjoy a Marvel movie. I think that like I feel like this has a lot to do with the internet. Obviously, I feel like as the internet evolves and as these I don't know, companies and platforms evolve, we as people are getting more niched into our own interests, right?
Absolutely.
So I know exactly what kind of movies I like. And it's way easier for me than ever before to go out and seek them and watch them at my house and never make a big deal out of it. Because, if I have access to things that I enjoy, why would I not, go out and seek them and enjoy them? But like, kind of like you're saying, I feel like it's gotten to a point where like we are so niched down and we are so like walled up in our own interests that it's super difficult for anybody, but especially in film, as it once was like a huge cultural thing for us. It's super hard to make those moments where everybody can appreciate and enjoy it, right? I don't know. I think it's super interesting to me how like embracing our individuality and our own tastes and stuff has been a great thing for those communities, but it's been incredibly hard to translate the power of those communities onto a larger scale for people that aren't already in them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. No, I completely agree, because I do feel like part of it is like, I don't know, because you and I are generationally different. That's why it's fun to have you on, is that I don't know if part of this is just my age. Like tonight, the Grammys are going to be on, right? I may not know. I'll know some people, right? But there might be some artists that will come out. I have no idea who they are. And now I don't know if that's because it's a niche. It's like, okay, people just love their one fan, or is it because I'm just not culturally aware anymore? But I do feel like it's an interesting point you make about like there isn't like these moments when, and this is a terrible example, but like Gone with the Wind. When Gone with the Wind
Sure.
came out, which is not it's kind of
A
fallen
really
from
good movie.
favor. Not a great movie to pick from, but it was like, for a big part of my life, it was supposed to be the greatest movie ever made. But I was like, wow. Anyway, but when that came out, I think there was like a search for for who was going to be Scarlett, and it was like a big deal. And I think a lot of people back in the 30s were well aware of this movie. And you're right. I don't know of a movie now where people do that. You're right. The Marvel movies are probably the closest we get, but that tends to be younger, skews a little younger, or maybe Star Wars, but I don't know. So that's an interesting point too. I almost feel like it's not really fair to call them movies anymore. It's almost all narrative storytelling, and whatever form that takes, whether it's a series, whether it's a movie made by a streamer and just shows on television, whether it's a movie that gets distributed through a theater, and then because all we're talking about is technology now. It's how it's being distributed, and that has nothing to do with the art form. It's like, so a lot of these guys, I mean by these old directors like Christopher Nolan and Steven Spielberg, all of them, they're like, oh, we have to have them in movie theaters. I'm like, yeah, that was just the technology of how you distributed them, because that was the only way you could really do it. But now you have a 75-inch screen in your house with great audio. That rivals a lot of places where you could go watch a movie, especially when I was a kid. There wasn't really good movie houses. So to me, it's like, I don't know that. So all of a sudden you don't see the difference between I'm watching a thing on Apple TV Plus with Samuel Jackson, who's a movie star, right? And he's doing a series, and it's good. It's a good six episode series. But I don't know why that's any different than if he did a movie that was about what he's doing. So it's like, it's just bizarre to me, and it's kind of odd to me that that I think like the Academy and I was reading these articles in the LA Times this week. There's like this upheaval there, and they don't know what to do, and they're trying. And I almost feel like it's just a traditional institution going through traditional institution stuff. It's being disrupted, just like the music industry was, just like the newspaper industry was. It's their time, and
Right.
they're going to have to figure out how they fit in to a new landscape and stop grumbling about it and embrace it. So, and I think they are, because I mean, when you really think about it, who are making movies these days? It's the streamer. I mean, it's Netflix. I mean, what were some of the top ones in the Academy Awards. It was
Yeah.
Netflix, Apple. I mean, some of the other ones were released, I think Warner Brothers or whatever. But anyway, I just feel like, and so the whole slap and all that is almost a side conversation to me of like, I don't think Will Smith intentionally tried to do this to draw attention, but it was more that the show's kind of a little bit ridiculous in terms
You would have
of,
never heard about anything about the Oscars if it didn't happen. I mean, I was going to go to my friend's house to watch the Oscars. Just not because I got sick, so I didn't eventually get to see it, but not because I wanted to watch the Oscars, just because I wanted to go have something to do.
Right.
I think that the event itself is kind of obsolete because, I mean, you Google, right? Who are the nominations? Okay. Come the award ceremony's on a Sunday. It happens. Okay, I don't need to watch it. I'll just wait until it's over and let me look up who won Best Picture. Oh, okay. This film won.
That's interesting to me. So I mean, because when I was a kid, the Oscars there were a chance to see stars that you couldn't see. So it's like, oh wow, again, maybe not a great example. John Wayne is going to be at the Oscars because you didn't see him on television that much. So it was like, all right, so Peter O'Toole's going to be at the Oscars. It's like, oh, he's a famous movie star. You don't see him on. And now it's like everybody's on podcasts or on YouTube. They have their own Instagram. They have their own thing.
Yeah.
They're really overexposed. And so it's like there isn't like this bifurcated area where the gods will come down from Mount Olympus and for a night we get to watch them interact with each other. It's like, no, they're just regular people. And it's an industry. And this show is basically just industry awards, just like it would be at NAB or any of our, any conference that you would go to where they give awards away for best product or whatever. That's what this is. And so all all these stories about, the movies are collapsing and I'm like, no, narrative storytelling is probably better today than it's ever been. I honestly believe that. I think you have more people, more talented people. I think you get better stories. You're getting way more diverse stories from people who, like this one I'm talking about, Samuel Jackson. It's about this guy who grew up. He's this old, guy, and it's like a story that I don't think that a normal movie would have taken a chance on, and yet you can do it now because it will find enough of an audience. And it's very good quality. It's really well acted and written, and cinematography is great. So I don't know. I don't really feel that bad about it. I almost feel like because I used to love to watch the Oscar telecast, and now I'm kind of like with you. I'm like, well, I don't know. I'll just, if there's anything good, it'll be on YouTube.
Not really a reason. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but it was just more like they had a good theme this year. It was called Movie Lovers Unite. And I'm like, oh, that's a good theme. It's more like, I know you probably, but I mean, it's more like, hey,
I didn't even know they had themes.
They had this theme. It was called Movie Lovers Unite. It was supposed to be this idea of like, oh, we're all going to gather together as a community and watch the Oscars. And I'm like, okay, but then it turned out that you got a bunch of spoiled brats, and why do I want to watch it? It's like, whatever. But so anyway, it's just, it's fascinating. It's an interesting time to watch. And so
I do want to say you were talking about distribution and how consumption of media itself is changing. I have been thinking a lot about that with photography. YouTube is its own thing, but specifically with photography, I love photography. I really enjoy doing it. It's been really hard for me to appreciate it as an art form as much as I probably should and get into the history of all of it and figure out who my favorite photographers and all that are, because the hub for photography, or at least, my age, people like me, the hub for photography is Instagram, right? Or, a Reddit or something. And it's interesting because like photography as an art form exists on the same plane as, somebody's vacation photos or, somebody's, their car or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So yeah. It's been really interesting to me to see that there is no separation anymore right? Between, you know, this fine art of photography or even videography on Instagram, stuff like that, and just every day, just a regular photograph, right? Just a picture from somebody's phone. I think that's happening with movies as well, right? You can watch a movie on YouTube, stream it at home, you know, pay a few bucks, watch it on streaming services, whatever. You can also watch a YouTube video, right? It exists all in the same plane. So there's no separation of like, this is what makes a great movie and this is what makes, you know, some stay at home YouTube amateur, whatever. And I think that most art forms, honestly, but specifically in film, I think that they're kind of, like I said, in that middle ground where it's between, you know, being this elevated, kind of like you said, Mount Olympus, the gods are coming down, and just like another democratized form of content, right? I think that's a really interesting spot that we're in right now with every single art form. And I don't know how it's going to play out.
Yeah, I guess I keep coming back to the narrative, meaning that to me, it's like if you looked 100 years apart or maybe 100 years apart, you looked at like the Spanish Civil War, occurred in like the mid 30s or whatever it was. Horrible event. And it was covered by photographers, famous photographer. And how were those? There was no real film. They couldn't really film it. They could maybe, but it was mostly still images, and they were distributed through magazines. And that's how you found out about the horror of the Spanish Civil War. And so photography had a moment where it was really crucial that you could understand not just the writing of something like in a newspaper, but now you had magazines that had full page photos of the horrors of it. And now 100 years later, we have people literally on their iPhones, you know, showing Russian tanks going down a street. So I just feel like photography is still incredibly powerful, but it gets overwhelmed sometimes, like you said, by the abundance of everything else around it. And so I think that photography has become, and I know photographers hate probably that I would say this, it's become another like asset in support of a narrative storytell. So a still image of a child or whatever in a war zone is just as emotional and impactful as it was 100 years ago. But now it's going to probably be surrounded by a narrative in a documentary, or it's going to have some music with it, or it's going to have spoken word where someone's going to. But you edit videos, and you know that a good still image is just as powerful, or maybe even sometimes more powerful than B-roll or some other asset you might use. A really good image is as good as anything. So, but it's now, like you said, it's kind of equal, and it plays into the entire narrative of how you're telling it. So it's the music, it's the design of how you edit it, it's the other video around it, it's who you have narrating. I don't know. To me, that's so. I mean, I look at photography and say I think it's great, and on its own, it still can be very powerful. But I also think that, you know, within this media universe that we have of delivering things, it tends now to have to be surrounded by it's just another piece of all of it. That's why I like video so much, because I think it incorporates all of it. You know what I mean? It's if you can learn it, even motion graphics and things like that. So anyway, it's interesting.
But even,
go ahead.
I mean, even video, like it's weird because I'm coming at it from two different schools of thought that I both agree with, right? Like the purist in me, the filmmaker in me, the cinema lover in me is, you know, vehemently against like streaming services and stuff. Keep the movies. The theater experience is superior to watching a movie on your TV. And I think that they need to be separated. You know, that's the purist in me. But I also think that it's an amazing, you know, revolution in media and art and everything that anybody can make a movie, right? On their phone, on, you know, whatever camera they have, and they can distribute it for free. They can do whatever they want with it. I think that's amazing. So it's really interesting to me to see this dynamic of like purism versus, you know, democratization of media and art. Like I'm interested, and I'm also scared to see how far that democratization goes. Like the worst case for me is like the impact of, you know, making a really great movie, or, you know, just telling a really great story narratively, is lessened because there's just so much content out there. There's just so much out there that nothing can be as impactful as it once was. That's my big fear.
Yeah, but I think that there's a couple things. Number one, some of these guys that I've seen, Quentin Tarantino, I've seen Christopher Nolan, it's like they only want their movies shown in a movie theater, and I'm always like, that's kind of arrogant, and it's kind of, if a young girl in the middle of Mexico or middle of Oklahoma can't afford to go to a movie theater and she's watching your movie on an old Android phone with a cracked screen, you should be grateful because that person is now, that child or that kid is getting access to the movie. And if they really take it for what it means, it doesn't matter where they saw it. They saw it, they were moved by you, they learned something from it, maybe they improved their lives. What I think theater should do, and you and I have talked about this, is you got to lean into what makes theaters good, and that's community. So why doesn't Netflix or Apple or some of these people put out, say to these movie makers, look, when you release your movie, we want you to do an 8-city tour. We want you to go to Chicago, New York, Atlanta, LA, Denver, San Francisco, Seattle, and you're going to do a night of, just like a recording artist would, just like Billie Eilish has to go out and perform her music. You're going to go out and do an evening with Steven Spielberg, and you're going to go there and you're going to maybe do it one night, maybe two, or maybe it's not him at every one. Maybe he only has to do 4 of them and you have other stars. They come out, they do an introduction, they talk about the movie, they watch the movie. And so why not lean into that? It's because it's like, that's the value of it, is that you're watching it as a community. You're getting a live, something that, and then of course people will record it and put it on YouTube, but you're getting that live night. I would pay $50 to go watch some of my favorite movie makers talk about their movies before a movie played. That's an event. That's cool. That's fun. And then Netflix can show it on their streaming service later and you still get access to it. But, I just don't understand why they don't do more of, they tend to want to try to compete with something that they're not. And it's almost as if, movies are turning into opera and ballet and the symphony. They're becoming a form of art that it's going to be a select group of people who really appreciate the artistry of it, who are going to support it. And you almost need patrons to do that, or it's building community where you have to go out and try to build it that way. Because movies, like you said, as an art form, it is cool to go. It would be great to go see The Godfather, with a group of people and watch it, or even any of these movies. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's an interesting time. I don't feel like we've lost anything. It just is transitioning into another thing, and if you do it right, it doesn't have to be lost forever. But I don't know.
I think that's where my fear comes from, is the fact that we're not in one point or the other. Like, we're not in the pure cinema era anymore, where movies only show in theaters, and after they're done with theaters, it's gone, and home videos, whatever. But we're also not in that era where you say, which I love that idea, by the way, where you go out and you do a tour and you really engage with the community and you get involved with the people that would resonate with your art. I think we're in this push and pull kind of moment where the people who are from the previous era are trying to grasp onto it and hold on to the pure cinema, and the people who are aren't from that are trying to figure out ways. Yeah, pretty much everybody else are kind of trying to figure out ways, but there's not really anybody that's done it yet. So there's this weird, the only authority that we have is the people from the old era. So it's we're in this really weird limbo. So I think that's where my fear is based out of, is that there is no solid direction that I can see film going, or any art form really. But yeah, I don't know. Part of it's really interesting to me, like I said. Part of it's really scary to me. It just kind of depends on who does what.
Yeah, I guess I think back where did movies fit in the 1950s? You had radio, television, and movies, and they were very stratified in terms of what you did with them. And people went out to the movies. Maybe they still got in suits, I don't know, and went to the movies like they would go to a theater or a play. And now what I hear from people, especially my brothers or people, I don't have kids, they're like, to go to a movie anymore is $100, $150 experience because I've got 3 kids and my wife, and we have, popcorn and all that. It's very expensive. So of course I'm going to stay home and watch Netflix or watch. So that's the other element of it. The casual fans maybe they were always there as casual fans. They just budgeted for it, and now they're not. They're like, look, we're not going to do it. And so the people who really love cinema, I don't think it was maybe ever bigger than it was today. It's like, I don't think it was just that it was more supported because it was the only way to watch a movie. So I don't know. It's interesting. It's fascinating. I don't know why the Will Smith thing made me think of all this, but I guess it kind of brought him down to, you looked at these, you hear a lot about like celebrities are they're like the royalty for Americans, right? We don't have a king or a queen. And so I guess our celebrities are, and so when you saw it, it was like so disappointing that I was like, it's all the death of it. It's like no one's, we're not even seeing them be respectable anymore. It's like, what the heck, so yeah. I think it will get resolved. I still like Will Smith. I don't approve of what he did, but I also think he's a super talented guy, and he obviously, I think, has some, some issues or whatever that he has to deal with. I don't know from the whole thing.
No, we're in a really interesting time for everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
It's just bizarre. But anyway, so what's your, I asked you for a tip of the week, and let's see if I can pull this thing up. If I have it. Here it is. So I think you suggested we talk about, this was something you and I talked about a while ago. I've kind of saw Notion or whatever. I know Ali Abdal, big talker about it, but you actually went out and started using it. So why don't you tell us what you're looking at here?
Yeah, my writing process for YouTube videos is very involved. It's templated, right? Like I had a checklist of stuff that I would do for every single video, and eventually, also, this isn't sponsored by Notion. It was very.
But it could be. Do you have a affiliate link?
Yeah, I'll send you a link, and you guys can sign up for 15% off. No, it was very templated, and I had to hit certain checkboxes to make sure that I was like making a good video by my standards. And I was doing it on Google Docs, and eventually it just got annoying to type out the same thing every single time. So I was like, well, I heard Jerry was talking about Notion. I've heard him talk about it. I've seen Ali Abdal videos. So I dove into it. And this is what I came up with. I kind of grabbed bits and pieces from, Ali Abdal and a few other like Notion or at least content creators.
Experts. I see a lot of guys do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really helped me not only write videos from start to finish, but also when I come up with an idea, get more clear about what it is I'm actually trying to say and the value that I can bring to the platform with the idea. So rather than just saying, okay, I want to make a video about, cameras, like I get really specific about, the value proposition, who the video is actually for, what specific issue does it solve, and then providing research for other people that have approached the topic and figuring out, how I can, kind of grab bits and pieces from their videos.
So how does
go ahead.
Sorry. No, I just had some. So how does this? So you built this. So is this a template that we're looking at? Then this is for each.
This is a template. Yeah.
And then there's this duplicate button up here. That's how you. Is that how you like? Once you use this once, how do you use it again?
So I've got I don't know what the word is actually. I'm not very well versed in Notion itself, but it's like a
database,
kind of a project manager. Yeah, I think it's called a database.
I don't know what they call it.
Where I can create video ideas. So I'll go from start to finish, and I'll create the template and fill out some information, and then put it in like the idea category. And then when I feel like I want to buff it out, I can move on to, I think it's like, okay, I completed the document. Now we're in pre-production, or I'm researching the video, and move it along like a path, basically. It's what Ali Abdal does with his videos, and I thought the system seemed really nice, and I was kind of already doing it anyway.
That's what I've seen, yeah. So is it like an Excel spreadsheet? It looks like a spreadsheet kind of thing?
Essentially, It's more like Asana or some sort of project manager, if you've ever used
Yeah.
something like that, where it's kind of like a spreadsheet, yeah, but you create the template and then it exists in like a your new templates area basically, and then you can move it along a track and give it a different tag basically.
So let's say you have like 10 ideas for videos. What we're looking at here, you would use one of these for each of those videos, right?
Yeah. I mean, we can start from the top, and I can just kind of walk through how
I don't know if I can have you share
approach
your
it.
screen. Oh, up top here, just this one. Whoop, I'm screwing it up. I don't know how to use Ecamm.
You could. I mean, you can walk through it on your system. I don't need to do it myself.
Okay,
It's
on
pretty
this page?
straightforward. Yep.
So
we've got the
publish.
published date. If I know what that is, I usually leave that empty to start out. And that
it.
just lets me choose a date. And then status, kind of the same thing. Just lets me know where it is along the. Oh, they didn't save. Darn, that sucks. Okay, well for on my end, then there's the status. So I go from like it's just an idea all the way down to I'm producing it, I'm post-producing it, I published it, it's done.
Got it.
For the avatar section, I have some different avatars that I wrote down beforehand, just doing some market research, figuring out who I want to make videos for. So I've got like filmmaker, photographer, a general creative guy, a productivity guy, just a personal viewer who enjoys me as a person, and then like a random, broad-based YouTube entertainment viewer.
So these like these little icons here should tell you it's a list. So like status is a drop down, and then the avatars are like a list, and then video is a drop down, and then.
Yep. So you'll just be able to click on one and apply it to that template.
So if I start
video intention.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a bummer these didn't save on your end.
Well, maybe if I start typing, it would do it.
Maybe. Video intention just chooses if I want to make it a browse-based video. So if I want people to click on this on the home screen, a search-based video. So I want people to, choose, certain keywords and stuff, or neither. It's a community-based video, and I just want to cater to my existing audience. And then finally, video type. I've got a whole bunch of different video types. So I've got like tutorials, little stories, lessons, just kind of a talking head, behind the scenes, Q&A, all that. I've made a bunch of different types of videos. And then once I fill that out, I will actually skip the title and the thumbnail for just a second. And I'll go to the elevator pitch, which is just kind of a, 3 to 5 sentence, what's in my head, what is this video about generally, just so I can write it down and get it on paper. And then from there, I'll scroll down and do the value proposition, kind of get more specific about the actual this video idea. And it's kind of templated in that form too, in terms of who the video is for, what does this video actually do, and how will they transform from the beginning to the end of the video. And then I'll get more specific into who the video is for. So if it's like a, tutorial on how Aperture works, then I would say, okay, this is a video for beginner filmmakers who are looking to get more into cinematography and blah, 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 blah. The issue would kind of be pretty self-explanatory. Okay, I'm explaining how Aperture works and stuff like that. And then how others approach the topic. I do some research. I Googled some of the keywords that I had in mind and then kind of draw inspiration from those. And then I would go actually back up to the title and the thumbnail and fill out 10 to 15 video titles and like 5 to 10 different thumbnails, just to kind of, brainstorm and get an idea of how I want to approach the video, how I can package the video, and if, the what I'm writing down as far as ideas actually matches the title and the thumbnail. So again, I write down like 15 or 20 titles. It's a lot. And then the end screen, I get pretty specific about, okay, once they finish the video, where do I want to lead them? And that's a really important part of my videos personally, just so I can keep them on the channel and give them a consistent or a cohesive path on my channel. And then there's some goals that I want, technical, creative goals, stuff like that I want to accomplish that I might not have accomplished with the last video. And then just kind of writing down with a brain dump, just basically, 5-10 minutes, just writing down everything I possibly can about the topic. If there's a story with it, or I want to implement some sort of story elements, there's little drop down there for story structures. And this is kind of, I copied this from Ali Abdaal. He does this, and just, there's a 3-act story structure and then the hero's journey structure, which is actually really helpful to just have on hand. And then below those, I'll just outline them, hook, act 1, act 2, act 3, conclusion. And then from there, I'll get more specific about the types of shots that I want, the graphics that I'll want, stuff like that, and kind of implement more creative ideas into the, narration and the, what I actually want to say with the video. And then I will write the narration script if there is any narration, stuff like that. And then finally, we're running out of space here.
No, I don't have the thing.
It's okay. There's only one after that, and that's the items that I need
for productions.
Production. Yeah, if I need to buy anything or get anything prepared for that. And that's it.
And what do you sell this for?
And this is actually, there's an affiliate link below, and we download the template for free.
There's a guy, I forget his name. I don't have it right in front of me, but I was going to buy his Notion template.
Really?
Yeah, he has a really elaborate one. I forget the guy's name. I'll find it for you. I'll shoot it to you. But he's selling it for like $100. And now it's pretty. Yeah. It's a pretty intense thing. It's like how he brainstorms but it's Notion with the idea of teaching it is because you're helping people really go through the whole process. And so, they're not having to take notes. They're like, no, you follow this process and the process is right in front of you. And so you just, you're forced to fill these blanks out. So you go do it.
Yeah.
That's what you have to do. And so, it's interesting that you got into it. I've tried it. It's still a little bit confusing to me, honestly.
It is for me too. This is the only thing I've actually
It's sort of like a web page
done.
with...
yeah.
It's like web, because people use them. You can build Notion for your own web page. Like you can just use it for that.
Yeah, I wanted to get more into like that, like linking to different documents and building like entire databases. But I feel like that's more work than it's worth, especially for what I'm using it for. Like I feel like I would invest so much more time and energy into building the systems than actually utilizing it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I've been pretty conscious about not doing that because I easily could spend dozens and dozens of hours building this out, and
I'm good at that kind of thing. I'd rather like waste time. Like I've got it all built
exactly.
now. I've got Evernote. I got Evernote built exactly the way I want it now. I'm like, okay, good.
I spent probably 8 hours building this template, and by the end of the day, I was like, that was super fulfilling, and like I feel like I did so much.
But do you have a video?
And I was like, well, yeah, now I need to actually use it, and I don't have any video ideas. So.
Yeah, exactly. But it's there if you ever want to.
Right, but now you're right. Let me build another.
Well, all you should do is just do a video on Notion. Might as well. I mean, I think I told you. Yeah, there was I watched one of Ali's because he's got his own course, or he has these cohorts that he does that are a couple $1,000s. So I was watching the webinar for that, and he had this YouTuber come on, and she was like. She's really more about systems, like being productive and helping companies. I think I told you. And she's like, but the only videos that and she goes, I have this YouTube channel. I talk a lot about systems and for graphic designers and all this, but the only ones anybody watches are the Notion ones. And she goes, I'm not really, I don't want to really become a Notion expert. I just, it was just one tool that I use. And he's like, well, just keep doing it, and you'll get there. So,
yeah. Well, despite, the big template, you don't need this, obviously. It helps me just, because I would have to type all this stuff out anyway if I was writing a video. I think my broad advice is make sure if you are a creator that you can see the video from complete beginning to complete end, right? Start with the title and the thumbnail and how your video is going to be packaged and presented to an audience. Figure out who that audience is. Figure out what things that they need from you and what things that they could find valuable. Figure out the best way to convey that information, and then figure out the best way to then lead them somewhere else that you can provide them value. I think that's my advice. Don't spend 2 days building a template. It's not worth it.
And then just do that 500 times.
And then do it 500 times.
And then you'll get ad revenue.
Yep.
You'll build a community of 20 people.
Yep. So. Do it for 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours or whatever. And
there you go.
You're making some money.
Well, thank you, Jake. That was great. That was very impressive.
Yeah. Now I need to actually utilize the advice.
Well,
but,
I'm gonna have to get into it. It's actually it's really good. It like leads you right through it. So, all right, I think that's it for the week. We've gone over an hour now, so somehow we managed to do that. And I'm gonna divide this up and put it on my blog.
Good.
See if we can get some people to watch it. We did get a thumbs up.
Is
that you or me?
No.
We got a thumbs up.
We got a thumbs up,
and we got one person watching. So.
There you go. Welcome to the show.
I don't know who it is. Welcome. Whoever you are. You didn't comment. I actually thought it was
message.
You. I thought it was you. But all right,
Not
we
me.
better end this show now. All right. Thanks again, Jake, for doing this for me. And
of course.
It was great talking with you. Good show.
Thank you for having me, as always.